This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and this week on the podcast, we have the meats. My guests are Justin and Lauren Owens, co-owners of Manzo Piedmontese, a private beef label that's making its way into affluent circles. Their farm raises the ancient Italian Piedmontese cattle breed, which is remarkable for producing beef that is extremely lean, yet remarkably tender, and has become a huge hit among celebrity chefs and professional athletes. Though they come from different backgrounds, together Justin and Lauren are redefining the beef industry through their passion, vision, and commitment to quality and sustainability. Lauren, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Joe. Excited to be here.
Me too. And Justin, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you.
I like how you wave on a podcast, Justin. You're definitely a podcast professional.
I do talk with my hands.
Yeah, okay. No, it's totally fine. And I'm going to start with you, Justin, since you've waved your hand first to speak. I heard that you're an 8th-generation cattle rancher. And now as someone who's a white kid from New Jersey, when I think of cattle, it's very limited. So right now it's all about Yellowstone. So question, how many people have been murdered on the farm? And what is the drama like behind the scenes there?
Well, we have had, one barn fire way back when my grandpa was running the horse farm. But
Lauren's giving you like a cockeyed look like, what?
Nothing like.
Long before me.
So Justin, so tell me about that. 8 generations. Is it like Yellowstone? And I don't mean like the soap opera of it all, but I mean in terms of like having a family run a farm in 2024.
Thinking about how we run the farm, it is very, very different than how my grandpa ran his farm, and then even different going back, because while I'm 8th generation, I had great grandparents that were country doctors that, worked on the railroad. And so, I mean, our family hasn't ranched in the same location for 8 generations like some families have. Our family has gone from Iowa to Oklahoma to Spokane and worked their way across the country.
And for you, Lauren, you're not from there. You're from the Bay Area, a little further south. But what's life like in the great wilds of Washington?
I will say it's been an education marrying into this. I came into it truly knowing nothing about the lifestyle, because I would say, like some other professions, this is very much a lifestyle profession. It's not a 9-to-5 that you can leave at work and come home and turn your mind off. So it's been great. And now I might just add on to Justin, his Instagram handle, hopefully I don't embarrass him here, is Modern Farmer USA. And I think whether it was intentional or not, I would describe him and us as truly modern farmers, if you will. No, I have not seen Yellowstone, but I get asked all the time if our life is like Yellowstone. I mean, it really isn't. We've really tried to fold, I guess, ourselves into this line of work, and vice versa, bringing farming and ranching into the 21st century. And we can expand on that at any point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're going to get all the cows and everything. But before we do, I'm just fascinated by this lifestyle. I mean, I grew born in Jersey City and grew up in the suburbs, and now I live in Charleston, South Carolina. So the farm life idea just seems, it's exotic. It's like you guys look like spotted owls or something to me right now. It's pretty cool. So tell me about, Justin, the living arrangements. Are you guys physically live on the farm all year round? Do you take a break from it? Can you take a break from it? How does it work, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, so right now my mom and my grandmother live on the farm, in the farmhouse. Our family lives about 10 minutes away, so we're really close. And I do have a ranch manager who lives kitty corner to our farm with his family. So somebody's always really close to the cattle and everything.
I would say the only reason we don't live on the farm is because of me. And moving from California, I was not quite ready to be on 200 acres with no neighbors or, a grocery store or coffee shop within walking distance. So 100%, it's because of me.
Okay,
Sorry,
and let me ask about this, though, because I'm getting now I'm sorry to bring up another TV show, but Green Acres. And I hate to say that, but you did bring it up that you're not a farm life person. So I'm not speaking out of school. So tell me about it.
No, no, no. You're not out of turn at all. I would say I've taken it in stride. While I didn't grow up around it, I grew up riding horses. So I grew up around barns. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. Like when I'm helping out, I'm really not doing the sexy work. I'm like mucking out aisleways or blocking roads when we're moving cattle bottle feeding calves.
I have a great video of you running a chainsaw when we were taking down those old corrals. You've driven the swather once.
Once, I wouldn't say. I'm not confident in it. So, baby steps for me, for sure.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Yeah, I'm trying to picture this is like a rom-com, like the girl from San Francisco who's living in like this sexy apartment falls in love with a farmer. Like, I don't know if you guys have sold your life story yet, but it's got Lifetime movie all over it.
Oh, I know. We had an article written about us in Alaska Airlines magazine because when we met, we were 15 and we sat next to each other on an airplane randomly. We weren't even living in the same city at the time.
Wait, so you guys met when you were 15 years old, different cities, and what was that? I mean, I know this is not the point of the podcast, but now you got me hooked. How does you go from a meet cute on an airplane at 15 turn into this lifelong relationship?
It was pre-cell phone. We're old. We're dating ourselves. So you talk to the person next to you.
Weird.
Yeah, I know. How was that? What does that look like? There were sparks and we kept in touch. I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time. He was in Spokane. I would say dated very loosely with air quotes, very innocent, long distance. I went off to school in California and we sort of kept in touch over the years a little bit. And then we reconnected in 2012 when I was living in LA.
Did Justin track you down? Was he staying outside your like apartment or something? Justin, how did you close the deal? Part of the expression.
It was funny because I was just graduating college and I was doing a lot of rock climbing at the time, and I was going down to visit my grandparents in Palm Springs, and I was planning on to go rock climbing at Joshua Tree, and I put out on Facebook, as you did back then, has anybody ever been? And she was the only one that responded. She was like, hey, I've never been, but it would be great to come hiking with you.
Wow.
And literally, so I flew down for a week and I extended my plane ticket another week, then another week. I ended up staying down there 6 weeks, driving from Palm Springs to LA. Yeah, it was over from there.
Wow.
That's terrible.
That's great. I love it. And Lauren, let me ask you, when you took him up on that offer, was it a platonic, yeah, let's go climbing buds, or you mentioned that there was a little bit of a spark when you were in your teenagers, but what was it like at that point when you clicked yes on Facebook?
No, it was very platonic. In fact, I almost canceled the day of because I thought, I don't know this guy really anymore. Is this strange going off to a national park by myself with him? But no, it was fabulous. I mean, what was supposed to be a 4 or 5 hour hike turned into a 8 or 10 hour, day. And it feels very kismet for sure.
That's cool. Well, thank you guys for indulging me. I appreciate that. So let's talk about these cows, because you have like these magic special cows from Italy it's fascinating to me because, again, as a Jersey guy who gets his meat from Costco, the idea of there being these cows that were brought in from Italy years ago, and now they're the Fabergé egg of cows, so to speak. Before we get into your side of the business, explain who these cows are and what makes them so special.
The origin story for the breed starts about 25,000 years ago. And this mass migration of Bos Indicus zebu cattle from what would be modern day Pakistan migrated west into Europe. And when they hit these marshy grounds and foothills at the base of the Alps in northwestern Italy, that migration kind of stopped with that barrier. And they started crossbreeding with native European bison, Bos taurus, kind of the origin animal for a lot of beef breeds and continental breeds in Europe. So in Italy, over time, you had these 5 Italian white-haired breeds of cattle develop. And they were all regionally or geographically secluded from each other, so they all developed into unique breeds of their own. The tallest breed in the world is Italian, 6'2" at their shoulders height. I mean, just amazing animals. So Piedmontese, they're in this Mediterranean lowland. They graze at 8,000 feet in the Alps. They just naturally developed over time these unique physical characteristics that also helps in the meat quality and meat production as well. So that's kind of the quick and dirty of how the breed developed.
Now, Laura, let me ask you, what was your cow knowledge before you went hiking with Justin? Were you aware of these Piedmontese cows before? Zero. You gave me the beefsteak symbol.
I barely ate beef before we connected. And it wasn't, I wouldn't even say it was a conscious choice. I just didn't really eat beef. That changed, of course, quickly.
Yeah, you couldn't avoid it. All right. So from my research, it sounds like for many, many years, and you went way back, Justin, you went almost Indiana Jones style on me there,
yeah.
but until the 1970s, these cows were not allowed to leave Italy. Is that correct?
Yeah, Italy, the Italian Ag Ministry had a complete embargo on the breed. You couldn't get live animals out. You couldn't get embryos, semen, anything out of the country. And part of it was there had been a lot of change within Italy around that breed the previous 50, 60, 70 years, where they were going through the heritage of the breed and a change into the modern breed. So Piedmontese, what's really unique about them is they have an inactive gene. The modern animals walking around Italy and North America, all of them, both alleles of this gene are turned off. When you go back to the 1900s, like early 1900s, you had animals that partially had the gene turned on and animals that both alleles were turned on. This gene specifically is related to myostatin production. All mammals produce myostatin. We do. Mm-hmm. Everybody produces different amounts. And myostatin's core function is to regulate protein. How that ends up is how much muscle mass people can kind of pack onto their skeletal system. So with Piedmontese, their myostatin is incapable of bonding with the protein that it encounters in their bloodstream and flushing it out of the system. So all the protein they eat, all the grass and everything goes towards more lean muscle production. And that ends up being about 30-35% more meat per carcass when it goes through harvesting. What's also really unique is the muscle fibers themselves. Like a normal muscle fiber is the thickness of a human hair. Their muscle fibers are 1/16 of that. Typically, you have a lot of connective tissue that holds muscle fibers together. And then, regular breeds, you have fat as well. Well, this is the leanest beef. Part of that is because you need functioning myostatin to create lipid deposits, fat deposits.
So when we see like beef in like the store and it says 80-20, 90-10, all that, what's the percentage on these cows?
Like 99-1.
Yeah.
I've had a meat scientist in the facility that we process at. I asked him that exact question. I was like, what would you say our ground beef is? And he said, it's almost no fat, 99, if that, if not more. Truly, it's the most lean, but because there's so little connective tissue, collagen, and the muscle fibers are tiny, it's the most tender beef, more tender than Mizuyaki, Wagyu, Hokkaido Snow, Olive, any other breed. It just has more collagen, which is what necessitates needing the marbling and the fat to break it up.
Now, Lauren, if you were to go on Jeopardy and a cow category came up, it sounds like you would do killer work on Lauren, because you're like, as Justin's answering the question, you're almost like mouthing like what the answer should be. So tell me about your cow knowledge. Is it as extensive as Justin's?
No, I wouldn't go so far as to say that. I am still learning every day. but it's growing every day too. I find it really fascinating.
I never really imagined going into cattle or going into agriculture. I grew up on the farm, but at the time, my grandpa still had a bunch of restaurants. I mean, over his life, he probably had 22 different restaurants. So most of the time I was at shopping malls, visiting Orange Julius's that he had, or his Chinese restaurant. And then we'd come home and then we would check on cows and calves. And I've been allergic to alfalfa my whole life. So I never wanted to be a farmer, never wanted to do agriculture. And it just happened that way, you know?
Wow. This alfalfa allergy is fascinating. Lauren, have you had to do the same in his life? Did you have to get, was it like, would you ever do like a Pulp Fiction style needle in his chest because he's been exposed to?
There's been a few times like bucking bales where I got too much like dried leaves on me and I was running back to the house to shower.
It's sexy. It's really sexy.
Uh-huh.
It does sound. It sounds like another checkbox of like what the turn-ons there, Lauren. I totally get it. You know what's interesting is because you mentioned Wagyu, and I know a couple of other expensive meats. So everything you explained to me, the leanness, where it's coming from, and you're comparing it to these other high-end meats. It translates to this is not cheap meat. What are we talking about when someone were to get a piece of this? If I wanted to get like a pound of ground beef of this Piedmontese.
If you're just getting a pound of ground beef, it's probably $20 a pound, depending on up to fillets and tomahawks. It's over $200 a pound.
Wow.
But most of what we do kind of averages out to $100 a pound.
We really try to sell nose to tail. We're trying to utilize the whole animal because part of what we're excited about, but I would say is also maybe an obstacle to overcome, is we're educating chefs, we're educating people as we go that the way that they think about traditional cuts is flipped on its head with this breed.
Typically, the toughest cut of meat on an animal is the rump, the top round, the bottom round, and that's why a lot of people have rump roasts. The top round of a Piedmontese is as tender as USDA prime ribeye. So all the other cuts in the carcass are elevated up to that midsection. And to take advantage of that, well, I had always heard that Italy has cuts that just don't even exist in the United States. Because of that, they just, at the butcher, they cut the meat differently. And why put it into a roast when you can do this other thing with it? Mm-hmm. So we ended up connecting with a meat scientist from University of Idaho. We sent him over to Italy for 2 weeks, and he trained with 3 Italian butchers to kind of harness that old world knowledge because they exclusively harvest Piedmontese.
Wow.
By the end of it, they looked at him and they were like, you know everything we know. And it was kind of a point of pride. It's been amazing, the support that we've had from people in Italy, from the farmers and the butchers, all the way.
And Lauren, help me out because Justin broke down the science behind it and the history about it. But since it's an audio medium, do the best you can. Describe the taste of a Piedmontese as opposed to, something I pick up at Walmart. How would you compare it if someone were to ask you like what it tastes like, the texture, all that?
Certainly. And, I might interject here the distinction that what we're producing is Fasona Piedmontese. So there's Piedmontese on the market that is crossbred, typically. It's not 100% full-blood Piedmontese. But what we have is traditional Italian Fasona, 100% full-blood Piedmontese. And that does impact the taste. That's why I sort of prefaced with that. The biggest difference, I will say for me, is that it doesn't have that mouth coating or aftertaste of traditional beef that you would find in Costco or the grocery store or even a restaurant, because it doesn't have the marbling. So this beef may not be for everybody. I know that there are plenty of people who really enjoy the fatty parts of beef. That's A-okay. But for people who are looking for a cleaner eating experience, then this is the beef for you, for sure. And we, the taste is also influenced by what we feed. And we do our best to source hyper local, and Justin can run through everything that we feed them, but that influences ultimately whether the beef tastes a little sweeter or maybe even a little more game.
I would say more like bison.
Yeah.
In that sense.
Let me ask about this though. So it's obviously more expensive than your typical cut of beef. What's your addressable market? Like, how do you, and let's get all businessy here. Do you go direct to consumer? Are you doing some sort of going to distributors? How does the business model work? You know, it sounds like you got the cow thing down to a science. You're going nose to tail. You're getting the best of the cuts. Now, what do you do with this?
Great question.
Yeah, it's been an interesting thing to explore, because when we set out, we really wanted to work one-on-one with families. Just customize a whole or a half beef for a regular family. But like a normal whole beef animal is maybe 350 to 400 pounds that you would get on your average farm. Our whole beef is anywhere from 650 to over 700 pounds of meat. Like, that's how much more productive these animals are. Just no waste. So we've had to kind of re-examine what makes sense for families and where they order a half beef for a year's supply. But we've found a really good groove, with athletes, pro athletes, and pro teams, where we've sold to the Kansas City Chiefs, the Denver Broncos, and then individual athletes. I think flavor-wise, what I hear back most from people is that it tastes clean. Mm-hmm. Like, this is what they imagine beef tastes like, which is an interesting thing to hear back. Yeah.
And I would say too, we're staying nimble a little bit in that there's no gatekeeping with this. Anybody who wants this beef can have it. We're doing this because we wanted to see a product out there that we love, and we wanted to share it with everybody else.
What inspired that was when we went to Italy in 2015, a friend took us to a restaurant in Turin where on the cash register it had the phone number for the farm, where the beef, the lettuce, the pork,
this restaurant was like a McDonald's of Italy. So that it gives that to give you a sense of this is their version of fast food.
Yeah.
And literally when you're checking out, it says, do you want to know where your meat comes from? Here's the name and phone number.
And you can go there same day. So
we loved that principle.
We came home and I made a brand new website for the farm based off of a hotel like registration website, so that it would be so quick and easy for people to just book a visit to come tour the farm.
Wow. And so the only thing I'm familiar with in terms of this direct-to-consumer model is Omaha Steaks. Is it similar to that, where, I don't know if you have a full e-com thing going, but is that maybe in the future of something where people can go fill up a shopping cart and get, cuts of these Piedmontese cows sent to you directly? Is that something that's in the works, or something you'd like to do?
We kind of started a little bit with that.
We had an online shop, but we found that our initial customer base were mostly private chefs. The feedback we were getting, we were getting a lot of phone calls saying, well, I see that you have this on your website, but can you do this? And we felt like we were explaining more often than not, or maybe the website wasn't very good at explaining, I'll make that correction, that we tailor this to you. So however you want it cut, what cuts you want, you name it. If we have it, it's yours. And so our pivot with that was we took the online shop down because we wanted it to be a conversation. We want to be able to talk directly with the consumers and say, hey, what are you looking for? What are your needs?
And every single order has been unique to each person. And the other half of it is, with all of those unique traits about the meat, it cooks 50% faster. So when somebody is paying that price, I want to have a conversation with them to make sure they're on the same level of understanding that what they need to do to cook it the way that they're going to be able to enjoy it. And I will say, almost every single person that has cooked this for the first time, they overcook the beef by a bit.
We've joked about starting a well done club and passing out stickers and awards because we're talking, I mean, even Michelin star chefs, people who are really well trained, and it's not a reflection on them and their skills. It's a reflection on how different this beef is. So they're really cooking with something different, and it just takes, it's a little bit of a learning curve, and we do our best to minimize that as much as possible.
Tell me about marketing to the affluent. This is something that most people cater to because they feel like, you don't have to, you're not dealing with a mass audience. You have my boss used to tell me, the riches are in the niches, the ability to get a smaller audience at charging them a bigger amount of money. Tell me how the marketing of this works.
On the marketing side, this is a unique product where reputation alone or brand name alone just doesn't exist. People don't know about us. They don't know about the breed or the beef. I've always believed that it's something that they need to experience in order to fully understand and buy into it, or, make that mental conversion where this doesn't sit in the normal category of beef. This sits somewhere else because it eats lighter, it sits different in your stomach, and it's a wholly different nutritional profile, more on par or surpassing skinless chicken, skinless turkey, salmon, even octopus.
Where we found success with marketing is we've let them taste it first. We want people to try this before they purchase it. And so we've really done our best to identify people who we believe would enjoy this first and foremost, and we'll send them samples. And we've been working hard to identify events and other opportunities where we can offer this on a larger scale. Like our beef was featured at F1 in Miami last month, South Beach Food and Wine Festival. Those are our two maybe biggest events so far, but we're looking for more opportunities like those.
And you mentioned professional athletes and teams buying the beef. How did they find out about it, if you don't mind?
Just cold outreach, really. We've made some connections to people through other chefs, just personal connections, which has been really fortunate and really lucky. But yeah, the two NFL teams, it really was just, one of them was a conversation and they liked the sound of it. And we sent beef to the Chiefs in December, and they used it for their Christmas Eve team dinner and then heading into the playoffs. So I think they liked it.
I think we've tried our best to fill the gap with what's the saying, essentially hire what you don't know.
Yeah.
But we've worked with some pretty exceptional PR teams who have helped us with that as well, and help with educating us.
And collaboratively working with the chefs.
Yes, that's been a huge. We've met amazing chefs, truly, and that's been really fun too.
Well, I will tell you, you're not doing a good enough job marketing, because Taylor Swift got way too much credit for them winning the Super Bowl. You should have said that propelled the Chiefs to another Super Bowl title. If you can do me a favor, I'm a New York Jets fan. Can you call them up and see if they can get? Because if that's all it takes for my 40 years of futility as a Jets fan to get them to win a Super Bowl, please call them up. I'm sure Aaron Rodgers would love your beef. Can you do that for me, Justin and Lauren?
I have their executive chef's email. I will send an email, 100%.
We'll say Joe sent us.
Yes, please. If that's all it takes, I'll take anything. Anything that'll help the Jets win a Super Bowl. Well, this has been a fun chat, you two. It's so much fun. Let me ask you this finally. If someone's listening to this, and pardon the pun, average Joe, comes across this and like, oh, this sounds interesting. How can we try this without necessarily directly reaching out to you? Are there restaurants? Are there certain outlets that have it? Like, what? Or maybe the only way is to reach out to you directly. Just give me a little breakdown in terms of folks, if they were just curious about the taste and want to check it out.
Yeah, at this stage, the best way is to reach out to us. I handle every single order. We fulfill them ourselves. There are a few restaurants, they've been making sample orders for them to learn a little bit more about the beef, and then to figure out how they could integrate it into their menu, given we're not huge producers. We're pretty tiny. Last year, our first batch was really boutique. It was only 20 animals. And this year, it's going to be 65 animals. And eventually, we plan on capping it at 100 head, because that's what we can sustain manageably, safely on the farm, on the land, what we can source the best quality feed for, because like that was part of it. We feed peas, pressed wine grapes, garbanzo beans, lentils, barley.
These cows eat better than me. Jeez.
These are bougie cows. These are very well cared for cows.
That's awesome. And so, and lastly, we are in the middle of grilling season. It's just getting going here in the United States. Would it be uncouth to make a hamburger out of one of these?
Oh, no.
We do it all the time. I mean, he probably eats 6 pounds of ground beef a week.
Justin's got a cow to himself, apparently.
I don't know if I could quite eat that much. But no, more than anything, the ground beef is the best. It's
so versatile.
But it's also like if you had taken tenderloin and ground it up. That's what the ground beef is like. What was cool is from one chef that we heard, because it's so lean, they were like, I really appreciate that it's lean because now I can add in whatever kind of
flavor influence,
butter, fat, whatever, into it, rather than kind of being restricted by the fat that's already in it.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, Justin, Lauren, thank you so much for the time. Justin, it's great meeting you. It's thanks for being a good sport. And Lauren, I'm glad you said yes to that poor guy who was all by himself. It sounds like it all worked out.
I'll keep you posted. All
right. Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
To find out more about Justin and Lauren's super meat, go to manzopiedmontese.com. And that'll do it for another Forbes Books podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila or TikTok at J Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.